Hello, welcome to another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Brian, as always, I ask, how are you doing today?
And I'm always pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'm always
That's
pretty
right.
good. Yep. So same this morning.
Well, we got all the laughing out of our system. And with us today is a new guest. We have Dan Vague with us, joining us here in the podcast room, the Vice President of Livestock Production. Operations, right?
Production. Operation, whatever.
All the operations involved.
He's the hog guy.
Let's say
the hog
production.
guy. And fairly new in this role. So, Dan,
Welcome.
welcome.
Well, thank you.
We're going to let him introduce himself first or do the question of the day.
No, you got to give him a question of the day. Hit him cold.
Before we go any farther, you got to have the question of the day. And today's question of the day is, what is your standard work lunch? And the guest always gets to go first.
Right. Honestly, I don't have a go-to lunch, but what I try to do, my wife works here in town, and so we try to meet as much as we can, and we'll just go out to some fast food place. Culver's is usually our go-to, or Arby's, one of the two.
Other side of town there?
Yeah. She works out on that end of town, and so we'll meet out there and have lunch together. That's about the only time that we have alone together, with chasing the kids around. So we try to meet each other and have
Nice.
lunch.
So you go to some place that serves chicken or beef. Okay. Makes sense. That makes
really?
perfect sense.
Well,
The things we learn.
This went south quick, Dan.
it did. VP
I mean, no
of
joke.
Fish.
Right. Yeah.
Get a fish sandwich.
It's fine. It's fine. Yep.
have to go to McDonald's and
I
have a
get it.
You got to create
McRib.
the demand, man.
Exactly. I knew it was going to have bacon on it. Apparently not. So, okay. All right.
Well, that is a good tradition. That's good.
Right.
That is good.
All right. Ryan?
So I bring mine every day, and it's
Brown
probably
bags.
whatever leftovers we have, or pretty standard turkey sandwich. So I guess I'm not supporting us very well either. But yeah, so nothing too much. I've been on a diet for like 7 months, so yeah, it's nothing exciting in there.
All right. Well, I've been on a diet for 7 days.
Okay, how's it going?
Got some blood work.
That makes 1 week.
Yeah. 5 pounds.
Nice.
Yeah, the pandemic was tough on me. I got pretty lazy, but my standard worked same way. I brown bag it, have a little lunch box I bring in every day. And my lovely bride, she's a saint. She gets up and makes me breakfast and lunch every day.
You said this before.
And,
I think right now you're just gloating.
I am.
Go
pretty
ahead.
much.
But go ahead.
So 4 o'clock this morning. So she hops right up there with me, and she made, and I do have a pork chop, I think, in my lunchbox, but it's a leftovers, generally
Finally.
speaking.
We're salvaged it.
Yes.
Way to go. Way to go. Well,
It's either that or we had some New York strip steaks last night, so I'm not sure what she put in there.
Let's go with the pork chop.
Yep. At this point.
yeah.
And used
So-
to have an egg sandwich for breakfast every morning, but since my new diet started, I'm having oatmeal. So she makes me a cup of those thick, old-fashioned rolled oats
Put some bacon on that oatmeal.
and a little bacon.
A little bit. Yeah, exactly. With some maple syrup. So cancel all that healthy stuff out.
All right, now that we're hungry. So, Dan,
bye.
tell us about how you got here today with the career path. And we had a retirement that just happened.
Right.
And so tell us about your promotion and how you got to this position.
First of all, tell us where you're from.
Yeah.
You're a ways away.
Well,
Home's way
originally-
away.
original home was Central Kansas. Grew up out there and met my wife at Kansas State University. She was originally from here. And so we met out there, and she brought me back here. She went to vet school at Purdue. And so we were up there for 3 or 4 years, and then moved down here. Position came open with Jackson Jennings at the time. And
Legacy company.
Right. And that's been a little over 15 years ago, 15 and a half years ago. I interviewed with Gary Calloway, who just retired. And I managed the Brownstown feed mill, the branch there. Had the feed mill, a little bit of crops. That was kind of fading out at that time. But I was there for 10 years. And about 5 years ago, started in the field with the pigs. During that time I was at the feed mill, I was working with the pigs some, walking through barns, working with growers, the ones that were right around the feed mill. And then we expanded to where we needed a full-time person out in the field working with growers and walking through the barns. And 5 years ago, that's what I did. Became the director of swine production, and progressed to here. I worked with Gary for all that time, and he was a good mentor and was training me to eventually kind of move into his role over those 15 years. And then the last year, I've been doing more of that. He was phasing out, and I was doing more of what he was doing or what I'm doing now. And that I just took over that about a month ago.
Good.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've been well prepared. I mean, it was pretty seamless, at least from our perspective, the rest of us in the company.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
right.
We may get comments and
Yeah. On the surface, you can't tell what a horrible job you're doing. No, I think Callaway. I think he set up a pretty good standard for a successor. You know, I think he did that well. So, I'm glad to have you in this new position. So, what's a day look like for you in your current role?
Right. A lot of my time is spent around looking at production records, finding efficiencies. Also working with. We have a very good team. At the feed mill and all our drivers and our production managers in the field. And day to day, I'm working with them, just making sure everything's coordinated. Everybody has what they need. If there's any questions, but a big portion of my time is looking at production records and close out records for the barns and just making sure we're on track and if we can find any efficiencies in the system.
So talking about those production records, we've had Gary on here before and talked a little bit about the whole process, but I guess as a refresher, so the little baby pigs come in at about what size and when do they leave?
Sure. The baby pigs will come in. They'll wean them at about 12 pounds, and those will come in here, and we will grow them for typically 4.5 to 5 months. The first pigs out the barn will be about 4.5 months, and they're weighing about 280 pounds. So they'll go from that 12 pounds to 280 in that time frame, typically about 135 to 140 days. And at about 155, 160 days, we'll have that barn cleaned out and be ready to fill it again. So from start to finish, about 5.5 months to get all them pigs from 12 pounds to 280.
Okay. And how much, so the little pigs, I mean, eventually, how much does a pig eat and it's in that 4.5 to 5
in
months?
its lifetime, a pig's going to eat about anywhere between 650 and 700 pounds, depending on your efficiencies and the diets that you feed them. Right now, it takes about 2.5 pounds of feed for a pound of gain, is where we're running, and that depends on the diets you use. Higher energy diets, sometimes they'll be a little more efficient, but what we're using right now, you got to kind of balance that with cost to make sure that we're
being efficient.
With them. Yeah.
So what are you pulling your energy from? When you say a higher energy diet, what do you change? What ingredients do you change?
So most of the energy in the diets come from corn in a pig's diet, but we can enhance that with liquid fat, usually like a tallow grease or a vegetable blend, vegetable oil. We can add to that and increase the energy in the diets. And those pigs will be a little more efficient that way. They can digest that grease energy a lot easier. And so, but right now we're not feeding that because that's so high priced. That oil is going to the bio
Fuel now.
diesel market.
Yeah.
Well, you got lots of options, and you kind of got this, and you obviously pick out the most effective and for the best cost, and got them all jacked up with vitamins and minerals and no steroids. We don't
Nope.
As a contrary to popular belief, I mean they're not jacked up on a bunch of steroids or anything, but they
or
are
meds. Or meds. Yeah.
That's right.
All natural diet. We work with a nutritionist through Purina, who takes care of our diets for us, formulates our rations, and just make sure everything's in balance. And we do use a few meds. We're not medication free, but we work with a veterinarian to pulse those in when they're needed. That they aren't on a medication all the time, and we make sure we follow all withdrawals and all that. So
Yeah, we treat, not try to prevent, right? I mean, we're just treating an illness. That's when the meds go in.
Yeah, we work with our veterinarian and test the pigs, check the pigs for anything that they may have, and we do diagnostics on anything that we have, and just make sure that any of our medication pulses are needed.
Yeah,
basically.
I don't understand that whole mindset of folks that don't want you to give medicine to an animal. I mean, if it's sick, if we get the flu, I mean, we give me something for it or whatever it is. But then there's a waiting period, right? I mean, if we do give medicine to an animal that's going to go into food, there's a withdrawal period or before it ever goes into processing,
right? And
that's all managed. I mean,
and that's all tested by the FDA. For a company to release a medication, it's all got to be tested by the FDA, and they know the withdrawal periods it takes to get it out of that animal system so that it's safe for consumption.
So to minimize the sicknesses in the animals, and so tell us about your biosecurity practices just a little bit. I mean, it's pretty clean in those barns.
Sure. Yeah, we keep them as clean as we can. It's shower in, shower out to those facilities. Anybody going to that building takes a shower. There's clothes inside the buildings. There's boots inside the buildings. Any equipment or anything that goes in and out of that barn is disinfected before it goes into the barn. But we try to keep those as clean as possible between groups. We take all the pigs out, sell them all out before the next ones come in. The barns are pressure washed and disinfected, ceiling to floor. So we watch that very closely and just make sure that we're not carrying any diseases into the barn.
Yep. The clean side of the barn is actually called where the pigs are. That's the clean side, and then the rest of the world is called the dirty side, right?
Yep.
And if folks, we had an open house one time before we ever brought pigs into a new barn, and people, I remember asked kind of about the piping. And for the power washers, when it's come time to clean with the disinfectant to make sure it is spotless when the new pigs come in. And that's all through those pipes. They've got piped in all the disinfectant product into the water as they power wash everything from top to bottom. And even the pigs, explain how they're kept clean. I mean, even the waste and how it drops into a pit. For people might not understand where all the hog crap goes.
They're not wallowing in anything.
Yeah,
they're not. No, they've got slatted floors in those barns that have a pit underneath it that collects the manure. And the pigs usually find an area in their pen, and that's going to be the area where they'll go to urinate and defecate and they're smart, very smart animals. They're going to keep that stuff away from their feed and water sources.
Yep.
And it's just an area that they go to, and they start that from day one. You got these little pigs in there, and they all go to the same. It's usually a corner of a pen or the back of a pen where the airflow's maybe not as good as or their heat source or whatever when they're little, and they'll start that, and that's where they'll go the whole time, and that just falls. They'll go on the floor, and it just falls through into the pit, and the pigs stay remarkably clean.
Yeah. So even they just move away from the area. The whole group kind of knows that's where they go, and when they lay down, it's on relatively clean slats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about technology in your barns a little bit. I mean, you have technology from your feed bins to the inside of the barns. I mean, that's really became big for you. I mean, as far as the monitoring and a safety and all of the things you monitor with technology. Tell us what sort of technology you've implemented. What do you monitor?
Well, the barns themselves have computer systems that run the ventilation and the feed systems in the rooms themselves. We monitor air temperatures and air quality, all run by that computer. If the barn is heating up or something, it'll kick on fans as it does heat up. We've got sidewall curtains that'll raise and lower to allow more air in or to cool it off. Wintertime, the heaters are all run by technology. Our goal is to keep that barn at a constant temperature. So when the babies are small, we'll have the air temperature in the room around 74 degrees, and then they'll have a little mat area with a brooder that'll run about 84 degrees. kind of a kennel area for them, and they like that heat. But then they'll come out into that. If we cool off the air temperature a little bit away from that area, they'll come out and eat a little better.
Oh,
And as the pigs grow, then we'll bring that room temperature down. So, and we'll get all the way down to, we'll set them at 61 degrees when they're up to 200 pounds.
that's pretty neat that you
Yeah.
can have that much climate control.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the apps that they use now with it shows you the fans that are running and the speed. And like you said, is the feed
We're
levels.
monitoring feed
Yeah.
too. I mean, that's relatively new investment we've made.
We've got several barns that have controllers that you can pull up on your phone and monitor what's going on in that barn, see what fans are running, or if there's something not running right. And we've also got bin sensors now that monitor how much feed's in a bin, how much it's using per day. If it hasn't run for a while, it'll send out an alert to the grower to have them check on that bin to make sure that everything's working right. Yeah. So
It is awesome.
And that helps Justin at the feed mill as far as the ordering process goes. You're not necessarily always waiting on somebody to remember to say, "Hey, it's
sure, it's more
time."
efficient for us because he can get
Sure.
he can get all that information in real time instead of waiting on somebody to go do that for him to give him an inventory on feed or whatever he's doing. So
So how many ton of feed a week do we grind?
it depends on how big our pigs are. They're through cycles right now. We're going through a lot of bigger pigs. And selling. We're selling 35 loads a week. So we've got a lot of big pigs going out the door.
Semi loads. How
So
much is on that?
so last week they hauled 70 out of the feed mill. They hauled 75 loads of feed, and that's 22 tons
Wow.
a load. So yeah, it kept them moving.
Feeding how many pigs roughly, plus or minus?
We're feeding about 100,000 at a time. We'll finish out a little over 200,000
Annually.
annually.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
That how so I mean back in before the pandemic, we just talk about things that we found were critical. One of the things that we decided was like if everybody got sick, that the truck driving, the feed was the most important thing, was to make sure we kept the feed trucks on the road for the animals. And that, and of course the home heat and stuff. And it was kind of neat to go through that process to find out exactly, if things go really bad, what are we going to make sure that we take care of?
The pigs have to eat.
Yeah, the pigs have to eat.
Yeah. So we watch that too. I mean, if there's in the wintertime, there's a storm system coming in or whatever, we may work a few extra hours to get feed delivered to those barns. If you're going to be down for a couple of days for snow or something like that, or ice, we make sure that there's enough feed there to get them through that period.
And they've got generator backup.
They've got generator backup in the barns. So if power goes out, the generator will kick on automatically. So yeah, a lot of good fail safes and a lot of good technology.
Any plans for expansion? What does the operation look like to you? I mean, what's the environment for raising pigs right now? Pretty decent. Demand? I mean, we talk about some worldly things as far as regulations and demands and all that. So let's jump to that for a little bit. What kind of environment are you operating in?
Yeah, right now in the hog industry, it's tough. There's a lot of people losing money right now, and we're sitting okay as a company. We're going to be just fine. It's hard to expand right now. Building costs have increased so much, and the markets aren't great for pigs right now. So not a lot of expansion. In the U.S., I think we're actually going to be decreasing the herd, and that has started. Decreasing sows, which is going to be less pigs, in the long run. We haven't seen a huge reduction in the pig numbers yet, but I think that will be coming.
So if you're a listener on YouTube or one of the and you're paying $8 or $9 for bacon or $10, that doesn't hardly square up. So is it just the cost of production has gone up so much? What's the Because at the grocery store it's pretty salty. No pun intended.
Wow. I have
Yeah.
to give you credit for that. That's actually funny, unlike most of your stuff.
Easy. We had a dad joke one day, but anyway.
Yeah,
what's
cost
the-
of production has increased dramatically in the last couple of years, and it's the parts of production that you can't hedge against. I mean, you can hedge against the corn and the bean meal that you feed them, and you can hedge marketing the pigs, but the transportation, the labor costs, energy costs, all that stuff has increased so much, and you can't protect that. And so that's why you see so much of that. And it's all got to filter down the system, right? Down the line.
Wow.
So that's why you see increased prices in the stores, and it's costing us so much more to produce those pigs.
Talking about cost, increased cost. That's part of that's regulation. Before we sat down here, you guys were talking about the California and some
Prop
regulation.
12. Yeah, Prop 12. You might bring us up to speed on what that is, because certainly people have seen it in the headlines. So
Sure. So California passed into law what they call Prop 12, and that is sows traditionally were farrowed in crates. Farrow is when they have their piglets. They're farrowed in crates, and they lived their life in a gestation crate where they were bred and stayed there in that crate until they were ready to go farrow. They moved them to a farrowing room to go do that. Well, Prop 12 says we don't want to leave them sows in a crate all the time. They want them in open pens. So that's what's it's pushing us to build our sow units differently, to remodel our sow units. They'll breed the sows in a crate right now for the OPG, what they call OPG, open pen gestation. And gestation is what the period of time that after they're bred, that they're growing those piglets inside them. The Prop 12 is going to move those to where you don't put those sows in a crate at all to breed them even. So they just go into a pen and are bred in the pens and they'll live their life in that pen, and then they'll go farrow in a crate for, they'll be in there for the 3 weeks and then move back to pens again. So it's just changing the way we do things. We've got to remodel sow units. The sows are probably not going to be quite as efficient until they get used to that.
So the question we need to address,
that'll change. That'll change, pricing of the meat and all that stuff too, because you're incurring more cost to remodel, and then the production will decrease just a little bit.
So let's make sure we touch on that, because that's the what, but the why is because California has said they're not going to buy any.
They're not going to buy any fresh meat
from any other state that doesn't fall underneath these guidelines.
From anywhere.
Yep.
That doesn't follow these guidelines, that sows are gestated in pens, bred in pens, and have a higher square footage of living space. So
for people that aren't familiar with what sows, their humor, they don't have the best attitudes. So if you're just looking on the face of it, you're like, well, let them run around and play together and go have fun. Why is that not the most practical way to keep the sows, I guess, safe and healthy and comfortable? Tell me, why is getting out of those crates, why is that not a good thing?
Well, those sows, there's a period of time when after them sows are bred, the implantation period, where the piglets are implanting to the placenta in the sow. If they're getting pushed around or the sows are fighting, that'll cause some of those to slough off.
Yeah,
and so they won't have as many pigs, obviously, that way. But those sows, they have a pecking order.
Yeah,
there's going to be.
That's where I was trying to get to.
Yeah. But they have a pecking order, and they fight. They will fight,
Yeah.
and so we'll see some struggles with that. They're coming up with new technologies as far as feeding them and trying to give them spaces to get away from each other. So we're working on that.
But there was a reason they were separated in the first place.
There's a reason they were more efficient because they weren't fighting, and they could just get along better that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? I mean, regulatory wise, anything coming up? Because you were talking about manure earlier. Obviously, there's some regulation on how that's managed. I mean, how you deal with that now?
Yeah, there's not a lot of changes coming up in that, but we're regulated through environmental agencies. All the growers work with them themselves. They own the buildings and work with their manure, but they've got manure management plans that they follow, and they have yearly inspections. IDEM takes care of all our barns around here, Indiana Department of Environmental Management. But they've got somebody that comes and inspects their barns and just makes sure everything's okay, and they take samples of the manure. They get it analyzed to see the nutrient value of it, and then they come up with a manure management plan to how much they can spread per acre and what they're going to do there. So that's highly regulated also.
Yep. It's pretty neat though. We take and all that waste is all applied to fields and turns into fertilizer for the next crop.
Turns into corn and beans.
Yep. Turns into corn and beans. Yep. And it's all contained. There aren't we don't have the open pits like they used to back in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
The lagoons.
Yeah, we're trying to get rid of that process for sure. I mean, there's a couple of those still hanging on in some of our operations, and we're closing those currently as we speak. Right. So, anything else from a hog production standpoint you want to talk about?
Excuse me.
We won't edit that out. We edit nothing.
Yeah, we edit nothing. Yeah. I mean, while you're looking, you mentioned your wife earlier. Give us a little background on your family. I mean, since you're famous now, you might as well make them famous too.
Right, so. Right. My wife and I were married 19 years ago. It'll be next week.
Wow.
Yeah, here in about 3 days, actually. Been married for 19 years. We've got 3 boys, a freshman, a 7th grader, and a 2nd grader. And we've been chasing them around. They're all playing football this fall. So.
Imagine.
Yeah. But they're not near as big as I am.
Really?
Right.
Oh, you got to give that 2nd grader a chance.
I know.
Yeah.
He'll get there.
He'll grow into it.
Coming from Kansas and playing football.
Yeah.
Imagine.
But we've been chasing them around this fall, just trying to keep up with practices and football games. It's just like everybody else. We're all busy.
What'd you do all summer? You got another sideline business that you got in the summer too. What'd they do all summer in the fairs?
Well,
you chase cattle too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We show Angus heifers, and so we spend a lot of time doing that. Go to several shows a year, and have a lot of fun doing that. And I think that's good for my boys. You know, get them up at 5 every morning to be out in the barn to feed and take care of them, and every night, and so it gives them some responsibility, and we really enjoy doing that.
So you get a pass on having roast beef for lunch, I guess. Now we know the reason.
Now we know.
We'll just let you go for 20 minutes before we let you off the hook on that one. So, anything else you got from a production standpoint?
I think we've covered. Unless you have any other questions on it, I kind of covered that. We can cover some more in another time.
Yeah, it's fascinating for
it is.
Our listeners to know about livestock. I mean, there's a certain image out there of livestock production, and we certainly want to convey it in the positive light that it is in. So we're good players, and I mean, you guys rely on those animals and the performance of them. So and you are surrounded with a good team. There's no doubt about it. So it takes a lot of people to make it work.
It's beneficial for us to take good care of them. You know, we're the most productive and most cost effective when we're taking good care of the animals.
Sure, so.
That's right.
Anything else?
I think that's all we got.
Okay.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies, and we are getting quite a few subscribers out there, so we appreciate that. If you like the content, just like and subscribe, and make some comments on the YouTube channel if you have questions, and we'll try to get them answered.
All right. Thank y'all.
That's it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for having me.